Hey, everybody. Okay. This is an interesting experiment. We're live streaming for Patreon for the first time, and I'm going to sit here and wait until it turns 9 o'clock. And I have no idea right now whether or not we're actually live streaming to Patreon. So give me 1 second and we're going to kind of see what happens here. And I want to thank all of you for your patience while this is going on. I can't tell if I'm live streaming or not. So this is all kind of wild and crazy, and we're in brand new territory here on this front. So let me just check in right here with the team and make sure that we're kind of like where we need to be. And I'm going to ask them to tell me if you can see me on Patreon. If I'm live on Patreon. All right, it's 9 o'clock. All right, so I'm hoping that we're live on Patreon as we speak. I have no way of knowing that from how I'm streaming through this platform, but I'm going to give it a shot. Oh, yay. Okay, so people can see me. Hooray. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. It actually worked. Rock on. Okay, awesome. This is great. Okay, so we're streaming live. Yay. Oh my God, I'm so happy. Okay, I can't even tell you guys. It's Resistance Live for the 12th of August, 2019. Woot, woot. So let me just tell you, this morning has been like chaos because we had a whole loom set up for me to understand how I could go live at this point. And it's through an unlisted YouTube channel. So there's like layers of this that are like incredibly crazy right now. Like we're in a secret location on YouTube streaming directly to Patreon. And it's just like nuts. So the loom actually had a video in it that was out of date. And so about an hour ago, I was sitting here getting ready to stream. And you all know I just got back to California. I was sitting here getting ready to stream, losing my mind because I was like, oh my God, we've converted the whole platform over. I may not be able to go live. And lo and behold, here we are. So I'm very excited. Yay. All right. Well, that's so great. I'm glad we're all here. I want to thank you all for bearing with us through this conversion. So there's a couple of people here who are saying they're not seeing us. But we're going to keep going anyway and just doing the best that we can. We're recording. So, and I'm seeing a bunch of you here logged in. So hopefully this will work. So in any event, so some of you are watching me on YouTube. That's interesting. Okay. Can somebody like post and say whether or not I'm coming through on Patreon? Because that would be really good. Let me just check here really quick what's going on. I'm sorry, you guys. I warned you this was all going to be really glitchy. And at the moment it is. So let me just check in here really quick on this, and I'll just ask you all to be patient. I have a lot to talk about today. So thank you all for this while we're doing this, because there are folks who are saying they can't see me on Patreon at all. And that's a little bit weird because they should be able to. All right. Let's see. Team is logging in. Everybody's checking to see what's going on here. I am going to zip back over here and just hang tight with me for 1 second, okay? If you guys don't mind, and we'll get going here. Okay. Here we go. Okay. And I'm curious as to how you guys are watching me on YouTube because it's only supposed to be streaming unlisted, which is sort of funky. But anyway, all right. Let me try this here and see what we can do. All right. My bad. Sorry, guys. Correction. Patreon notification. Oh, I'm on Patreon. Hooray. Okay. Now we're cool. All right. That's great. I'm glad everybody's watching me through Patreon. That's fantastic. All right. There we go. Yay. All right. Fantastic. Oh, I'm so excited. All right. Rock on. That's really good. Okay, so it worked and we're here and we're only 4 minutes into it going like, what the hell is going on? All right, so welcome. Okay, we're here and we're good. All right, so I am gonna just, you guys can see me on Patreon. I'm hearing from everyone that you can see me on Patreon now, which is great. All right, I hope you can see me on Patreon, which would be really good. All right, in any event, here we are. So let's just like talk through a couple of quick things here now that we're like here live streaming and it's all working. Oh my God. So I made a message. I made a comment on Patreon and elsewhere over the weekend about some upcoming stuff. So I want to just let you all know that we are doing some really deep and profound work here behind the scenes on survival strategies. And one of the reasons why I posted what I posted yesterday kind of like everywhere is that, one of the things that I've really been struggling with quite a bit, and I mentioned this on the broadcast last week a couple of times, quite a bit, has been the issue of how to keep going. And I know from where you all sit that there have been ongoing challenges and ongoing issues with this for all of you. Like I've heard from literally there were thousands of you commenting on this over the weekend. So I want you all to know a couple of things about this just in general. All right. From where we sit, we're really concerned at this point about the capacity of people to just keep going in resistance. And we knew that, we've talked about this actually since back on the first broadcast, that the issue of burnout was really what this administration was counting on. So the one thing I'm going to say about this right now, and I will tell you all a little bit more about this later on in the week, is we are working on something to kind of try to give everybody a bit of a break in the form of something that can support everyone who is out there doing all this good work, including those of you who are out there doing it the first time. So just know this, I'm going to make some additional announcements this week about that and the upcoming issues around that and how that's all going to work. But I want you all to know, we're hearing from all of you, and I myself have been in this place. Honestly, I just haven't wanted to talk about it publicly. I've been in this place for a while now, where it's just the sort of relentless exhaustion, the not sleeping, the anxiety, the constant overload of information, fear, hatred, rage. How do we process all of this and continue to keep going? So there's going to be a lot more to say about that in the coming weeks. And I just want you all to know that we're working on it, and we've got something coming up that's going to be super duper yummy that I'm actually really excited about. It's been a while since I've been this excited about something that we're going to do to kind of serve this community. So that's coming. All right. And we're stoked. All right. So let's just talk about kind of some events over the weekend and while I was traveling and all this other sort of stuff. So Epstein. So let me just say this from where we sit right now. All right. I think that it is, we have to be very careful about speculation. And while it is all very odd, Epstein's suicide is all very odd. It is very odd that he was taken off suicide watch after an attempt. It is very odd that there doesn't appear to be any video of it when he was one of the most high profile folks who was being held in detention. That's really weird. I will tell you that there's also at this point some concern about what was going on with the guards. All of this is a little bit odd. Okay. I want to say that. I also will tell you that I am not going to the place of he was oft in prison. Do I trust Bill Barr to run this investigation? Not really. I mean, I don't think that should come as any surprise to anyone. But I do think that at this stage of the game, there are some unanswered questions that are going to need to be evaluated. Now, one of you asked a very specific question about how the ongoing cases are going to be affected. And let me just say this. My expectation is that the ongoing investigations are only going to be affected to the extent that obviously Epstein can't be prosecuted. And that doesn't mean, and this is a really key thing for everyone to remember, it doesn't mean the conspiracy count won't continue. Now, one of the things that's kind of a major issue right now with where we find ourselves is that Ghislaine Maxwell, who of course, as we know, was Epstein's procurer in chief, so to speak. She was the person responsible for finding girls and funneling them and contacting them and all that other sort of stuff. She is kind of nobody really knows where she is. We know that she's not in the United States. We know that she was in Paris or in France very recently. The issue of how she could be found and located is one that relates to Interpol, as you all may remember, and any local authorities in the country where she is. But please know this, there are international criminal criminal following mechanisms that will allow her to be arrested and taken back to the United States in the event that she is charged with something. So I will tell you that if I were the prosecutor of this case, given what has happened, my next step would be to start pursuing prosecutions. And some of these, I believe, have already been started. Honestly, we just may not know about it, against people who were in conspiracy with Epstein for sex trafficking. Maxwell is obviously at the top of that list. The bigger question is who else was involved. And, that document dump on Thursday, that, deposition testimony, briefs that had been filed, motions that had been filed with the court, transcripts, all of that contains some very disturbing information. And that, by the way, is the Giuffre case against Maxwell. That there's some very disturbing stuff in that case that implicates a lot of very big names. And we are talking like senior political figures. We're talking foreign officials, ambassadors, foreign presidents. And again, there are lots of other people potentially implicated in this from the standpoint of those who may have engaged in child rape, as well as those who may have been involved in procurement. So I want to just make it all really clear to you. I don't think any of it's going away, but I also don't want to minimize the impact of Epstein's suicide on the victims. And one of the things I said on Twitter right after this happened was this. For me, you all know, like, I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse. I took my abuser to court when I was 19 years old. The trial itself didn't actually happen until I was like, I think I was 21 or 22 when the case actually went to trial. I will tell you that if I had a problem along these lines, right, where like the person that I was going after committed suicide while I was in the process of this, it would have made my recovery infinitely more difficult, because one of the things about all of this that is so significant is that the moment of being able to actually confront your abuser in court is huge, like huge. And I mean, even if you're me and I lost, right? I think everybody knows the story of this, that like, one of the fact finders who was involved in the case that I had against my abuser said, well, there were no witnesses because, I didn't count. Even in that instance, though, I got to sit on a stand in a courtroom and tell what had happened out loud to the face of the person who had done it and his lawyers and to the judicial, people involved. And I had a prosecutor with me. I had, family with me backing me up. I had my dad with me backing me up. All of that made just a massive difference in the context of my ability to say, like, I've spoken the truth. And even though losing was incredibly hard, the fact that I had confronted my accuser in a court of law under oath was enormous, right? It was like a reclamation of power. And it sucks that he went on to do it to other people, because he did. He's been prosecuted numerous times since. But all that said, for me personally, the moment of being able to take the stand, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and actually say to his face what he had done out loud. I did get cross-examined in really ridiculous and awful ways. But the ability to do that was really enormous. And one of the things that I find so foul and disgusting about the end of Epstein is that, assuming that he did in fact kill himself, he denied yet again these hundreds of girls that he victimized the opportunity to seek some form of justice that would allow them to heal. It is so selfish. It's just so selfish. I know that there are a lot of you out there who are like, of course he was murdered, whatever. I'm going to wait for the facts on that, and I'm going to wait for the evidence. But I will tell you all that, to me, the biggest bit of damage around all of this is the idea that that his victims are not going to be able to confront him in a court of law and see him brought to justice. That's really hard. So, again, I think we're going to see developing events around this. We're going to have to see what comes out of the autopsy. Again, I put it through the lens of it being, the DOJ and their investigation. By the way, it's Riker, so there could also potentially be a state investigation. But we'll have to wait and see what happens next in all of this. Again, you all know I trust Tish James in all of this. And if the Attorney General of the state of New York takes this over, moves in the direction that we expect her to, or does her own independent investigation, my expectation is that we will then see the outcome of the autopsy and the investigation that hopefully is reliable. All right. So that's Epstein. We had questions about the House Judiciary status and the status of the investigation. What I want to say on this front is this. Where we are right now is that the House Judiciary investigation is ongoing. Again, we know that they have compelled the testimony of Don McGahn. We had that incredible interview by Jerry Nadler at the end of last week on Rachel, where he said, we are in a formal impeachment inquiry. Hooray, hooray. And I will remind you all, like I said at the end of last week, we are in a position where at this point, We are, seeing, pursuing the pursuing of testimony against McGahn and others through the court process, which is what we have expected. I will also let you know that, somebody asked, are they keeping an eye on McGahn? I'll remind you all, Don McGahn's a lawyer. His bar license is at issue. If he flees the country or he does something, evading a subpoena in and of itself is a concern. If he does all of that at this point, and he continues to evade process when he's compelled, we will end up in a circumstance where his bar license will be in jeopardy. So I don't really think anybody needs to be like, quote unquote, keeping an eye on McGahn. It's the way that he makes his living. From the standpoint of where we find ourselves, it's important that, he shows up and that he testifies and he complies rather with what House Judiciary is doing. Do I think they need 24-hour security on him? Probably not. But the other thing to remember here is that there are sanctions that are available. We have not seen House Judiciary use them. But from the place where we sit at this point, my expectation is that we will find him testifying before too long. Now, I just want to pause for a second. I'm seeing all these comments flow by. I'm sorry if you're having glitches on Patreon. That I will let you know that our team, while this is going on, I'm getting notifications in my upper right-hand corner that they are troubleshooting what happened here. We obviously want to be in a situation where you all can see live on Patreon, and we were assured that this is how it was going to work. Some of you are getting through. Again, please just stick with us for the first day or two of this, because there's going to be some glitches here as this all proceeds. And at this moment, I'm seeing all of you are saying what happened to the live feed on Patreon. We're doing what we can. We're troubleshooting on this. Some of you are saying the quality is far, far better. I hope so. In any event, stick with us on this. Okay. And obviously the video will be available on replay. I want to reiterate to all of you that we knew it was going to be glitchy for the first couple of days while we got the hang of this. And we'll keep going, and I promise it's going to be better as we go along. All right. So stick with us for the time being. Okay. I'm really glad some of you are saying you can see us. That's fantastic. All right. Okay. So a couple of other things here that I just want to mention. There was a question about the DNI. Basically the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. You all know the deputy DNI was forced to. We talked about this on last week's broadcast, and she was forced to resign. Basically, we believe because at this point, the president obviously wants to fill those slots at the DNI from the perspective of his own sycophants and supporters. As you all will remember from last week's video, the deputy DNI is supposed to ascend when the acting DNI or the DNI is removed. They took her off. They asked her to resign. She's gone. So the question that was asked this morning is is the president using the Office of the Director of National Intelligence to pursue political enemies? Well, listen, I think at this stage of the game, given what Bill Barr has done, the standpoint of where we find ourselves at this moment in time is that we have to assume that the DNI's office and every office, by the way, every office, has at this stage of the game been manipulated by the president for his own political pursuit, assuming it's under the Department of Justice because of what Bill Barr is doing. Do we know for certain that the DNI is being manipulated to pursue political enemies? No, but it's a fair assumption. Again, I just want to say it's speculation, but there's been a lot of discussion about that since the deputy DNI was forced out last week, that there may be some component of what's happening here, in addition to the fact that it's leaving our national security wide open, that at this stage of the game, there may also be some serious concerns about the pursuit of political enemies by the national intelligence arms, in addition to the DOJ. And again, we'll have to kind of see what happens next on that front. Okay. All right. Next issue, I just want to point out a couple of other things that are ongoing right now. Jews for Justice has gotten a lot of play over the weekend as well. They should have. They're doing incredible work, shutting down ICE offices, protesting in front of private prison operators. There's been a lot of folks who have been, at this stage of the game, working very hard to try to make an impact as activists on the camps, on the private prison facility operators, on ICE, and on CBP. By the way, we had a little bit of breaking news over the weekend about CBP that's so disturbing. I hope you're all following Jen Budd on Twitter, that the head of CBP is allowing CBP officers to do radio shows over Breitbart. I mean, there's so much wrong right now inside Customs and Border Protection. My view is that the entire thing needs to be dismantled and taken apart. So, in any event, my hope is that we're going to get to a place where before too long, we're going to see some really serious reform and oversight inside CBP. But in the interim, Jews for Justice is doing great work. Never Again Action, which is related to Jews for Justice, is doing incredible work. There's folks out there all over the country right now that are ongoing and, that are ongoing in terms of activist work. And we all need to be supporting those quite dramatically. Sorry, I'm like watching all these things go by saying nobody's seeing anything on Patreon and half of you are watching on YouTube. And I'm like just worried about what's happening on the back end. So I apologize if I'm not my usual, precise self on this stuff, but I will be. We're going to get there. All right. Some of you asked some questions about the ongoing investigation. So we've already talked about House Judiciary. Keep in mind, intelligence is also doing its job. One of the things that I want to remind you all of here, by the way, just from a procedural standpoint, is that impeachment starts in the House Judiciary Committee, but it can be informed by investigations that are done by other committees. Articles of impeachment can be submitted based on evidence from other committees. So the thing to understand here about what's happening in the House is that it's all working together, okay? Meaning that from the standpoint of where we are in the impeachment inquiry, any evidence that's being taken could potentially support articles of impeachment. So want y'all to understand that, at least from where we are sitting right now, my expectation is that evidence is being taken by House Intelligence, by House Ways and Means, by House Oversight, in addition to everything that is being found by House Judiciary itself, could potentially be used to support articles of impeachment that are then submitted in House Judiciary and voted on by the House Judiciary Committee. So all of those investigations work together. This is one of the reasons why, 8 days ago, 10 days ago, when it first was that, there was that, actually, I think it was a week ago Friday, when the pleading that was filed in court by Judiciary mentioned ongoing impeachment investigations, that, everybody, including Lawrence Tribe and myself, said, this is where we are. So from the standpoint of the beginning of an impeachment inquiry, any investigation that potentially supports articles of is an impeachment inquiry, right? This is one of the reasons why I was saying, there's no magic words, right? So from the standpoint of where we are now, my expectation is that all of the evidence that is being taken can be used to support articles of impeachment. What that means is that literally every ongoing investigation in the House that relates to Trump or Russia or other criminal activity, any investigation related to what's happening at the border, any investigation that relates to the president's finances, any investigation that relates to Stephen Miller, any investigation that relates to obstruction of justice, any of that could be used to support articles of impeachment down the road. So that's all. At this point, very good news. All right. Last thing I wanted to talk about today from a news perspective is the issue of climate change. So we had a call on the Patreon feed over the weekend to add more conversation about climate change to what we're talking about here on Patreon. I'm going to freely admit to all of you that I am not a climate change expert. And that, one of the reasons why I have not touched upon it from the standpoint of, what we talk about here as much as maybe I should have, is because the science is not within the realm of my expertise. Obviously, congressional oversight of climate change is within the realm of my expertise, but we haven't seen all that much of it. You all know I have been, from the perspective of, where we sit on the Green New Deal, very much supportive of that. I have been supportive of AOC and what she's trying to do out there. I will admit, that those of you who are doing climate activism, have been doing some incredible work. I know of quite a number of environmentalists that have been hanging out in our community. So one thing I just want to mention here on this front is that, if you have actions or issues or things that you would like to bring to our attention and have us front out to the community, we are more than happy to do that. I am here. I am open to it. You can post things on the question feed. We will make sure to circulate them. And I recognize, as with all of you, I know the gravity of where we find ourselves. The timetables at the moment are terrifying, terrifying. And we want to do whatever we can to support those of you who are doing the work related to that out there in the world. All right. My understanding is that this has been a very glitchy first day from seeing all these comments float by on the right-hand side. I'm very sorry about that. I will let you all know that we are having a team meeting. We have our regular team meetings on Mondays. We're going to have an extra special long team meeting today to troubleshoot this and try to get us back on track, for tomorrow. But I know that quite a number of you have logged in. I'm seeing almost 300 of you here right now, which is great. I will let all of you know as well that, our understanding was that this was all supposed to live stream to Patreon. I'm getting information from a bunch of you that, everything looks great on your end. And then there are some of you in the comments who are saying that you're having issues with Patreon or you're having issues with the camera or with the comments. So just rest assured that we're going to troubleshoot all of this until tomorrow. As I said at the top, it's really important that you're a little bit patient with us because this migration has been a very big deal that, by the way, we've been working on for like 6 months. And we knew that it was probably going to be a little glitchy in the first couple of days. So please be patient with us. We promise we're going to be here. We will be doing everything that we can to make it as easy and simple on all of you as possible. Obviously, 300 of you got through today with no problem, which is really good. Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Nancy. Nancy's writing in like, no problems on Patreon. Everything's working fine here for me. Yay. So that's really good. And hopefully as we continue to do this, it will improve dramatically. So we're doing everything that we can. We want to make it a really positive and wonderful experience for all of you. As always, we would not have migrated if we didn't think that was possible. And we will be checking in on all of this and making sure that it runs a bit smoother going forward. So my apologies. All right. Last thing I want to mention, something I mentioned at the top when we only had a few of you on. We are working on this new initiative, which I'm hoping that we're going to announce later on this week, which is designed to be a relief for those of you who are completely burnt out. This, again, as I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, is something that I have been struggling with dramatically over the last several months, honestly. And it peaked in the last couple of weeks to the point where I was like, fuck it, I'm done. And that would have included this broadcast. And it didn't. But one of the things that's been brought to my attention, I had this wonderful conversation, as I mentioned on the feed last week, with one of the most incredible activists that I love out there in the world, who out of the blue wrote to me and said, I'm really, really worried about you. I'm worried about how you're doing. I'm worried about how everyone is doing. But I'm really worried about you. And I think you need some time off to heal. And I said, I can't really do that. And she said, well, let's think about that. And one of the things that led to was one of those moments that I love as an entrepreneur, and as a creative and a visionary, on the Kolbe scale, where I suddenly thought to myself, oh my God, there's something actually we can really do about this to serve the community and make it better. So we're gonna announce that hopefully by the end of this week. Fingers crossed. I'm so excited. But we're hoping to give you guys something that's going to help to support your ongoing work while allowing you some modicum of relief and really help to support activists and leaders who are really incredibly burnt out. We're going to do the very best we can on that front to support all of you because we need it too. All right. So listen, that's it for today. I apologize for the glitchiness. Some of you are saying it's perfect. Some of you are saying it's a mess, but just keep in mind that we're going to troubleshoot all of this. We're going to work on it today and we're going to work on it tomorrow if we need to. And we're going to work on it until it's perfect for everyone. Just lots of love. Okay. And thank you for your patience today. We will figure this out. All right. I just want to let you all know that. You all know that we are in this for the long haul. We always will be. We're going to figure it out. We're going to make it usable for all of you. And peace and love, as Kim just said. Lots of love to all of you. And I will talk to all of you tomorrow. Please stay tuned to the Patreon feed because everything that we need, you're going to need to know. We are going to send to you over the Patreon feed. Question feed will still be there. Information will still be there. Updates will still be there. If timing changes on the broadcast, it's all still going to be on Patreon. Promise it will be there. We are also starting bonus videos again this week at $10 and up for those of you who are on here at $10 and up. And the weekly podcast, which is going to be much more limited than what you guys get here on the daily, but will contain, like our top 5 questions of the week, as well as maybe some other like smaller issues that may need to be touched upon in the podcast will be available as well. And we will obviously post links to that there too. Okay. So much love to all of you. Thank you very much for your patience while we're going through this. I promise it's going to get better. All right. I'll talk to all of you tomorrow. Thanks so much. Bye.